7 things that scuba diving has taught me about life, starting with number 7. On the other side of some of our biggest fears is sometimes life's greatest rewards. I love that quote. And scuba diving for me has been a perfect example of that. Why? Because I grew up in San Diego, where when you go to the beach and you're surfing or you're body surfing or you're boogie boarding, you are afraid of the sharks, that sharks are your enemy and that they will hurt you, that you might step on a stingray when you're at a San Diego beach. And the ocean is a scary place. I grew up scared of the ocean. And it wasn't until my adult life that I realized this fear is not serving me, that I should consider. I snorkel. I remember I was in the Philippines snorkeling, and it was some of the best snorkeling I had ever had. It was in a place where nobody snorkeled, and so there were just fish everywhere, like so many of them. And I realized I am missing out on a really cool opportunity because I'm letting my fear get the best of me. And I never wanted to become a scuba diver until that moment. I was like, I need to see what's down here. And that is number 7. Let's jump to number 6, which is scuba diving. You oftentimes have no control. And I feel this way a lot about life, that a lot of times when we learn to release control, that's when things really go our way. And oftentimes in scuba diving, you have this moment where your mask is fogged over and you just can't see. And maybe you put defog in your mask, but I don't know, you're down there 50 feet underwater and it just keeps fogging over and you just can't see anything. You do all the things that you can to, clear your mask underwater, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. And I had a dive yesterday where for the last 20 minutes, I just couldn't see anything. And I was just like, all right, well, I'll just, between the little areas of fog, I'll just try to look as best as possible. But I just stopped trying to mess with my mask because it was making me blow through my air tank trying to fix my mask. I was fussing with it underwater. And I was like, I just need to chill. In the same moments in life where it's like, you try so hard to control or fix something when really you just need to chill and instead adjust to your new norm. My new norm then was I had spots in my mask that I could see and most of the spots I could not see. And I just needed to finish my dive in this way. And that was the best that I could do. Another one is when you're scuba diving, something touches your leg, something brushes your backside, turning around underwater is like the slowest process. It's like, oh, something touched me. What's behind me? And it takes forever to turn around and look. You can't just whip around and do something underwater very easily. And sometimes I feel that way in life too, that you want to like quickly understand something or quickly know something or quickly learn something or quickly do something, and you just can't. Most of the things that we achieve in life are never on our timeline. We have to be patient with life. I think about how many times I tried to force something like, make this happen faster, or in scuba diving, look behind me faster. And it's like, no, it doesn't happen on our timetable. It'll happen, but it's almost never on our timetable. Number 5 is life is precious. I am reminded when I scuba dive that, wow, this really is a very, very extreme sport. That it's not normal for humans to be breathing underwater and to be at depths of 110, 120 feet. Like, that's just not normal. And so the thing that I remember every time that I'm down there, yeah, you scuba dive with a buddy, but let's be honest, like if something for real was happening down there, your chances, I guess it depends on the exact scenario, but it's not an easy place to turn things around if things are not going well down there. And I am reminded that life is precious and that in an instant, I could no longer have access to my air source and that life is gone. And a lot of times when I'm down there, I'm reminded of times in life. I mean, I've had a lot of brushes with death in the extreme way that I love to travel and adventure. Or I even think about, and this one might bring tears to my eyes, I think about in 2021 when my boyfriend Meatball got sick, and we didn't know why he was sick, but he was so close to dying that every night when we would go to sleep, I would wake up in the middle of the night and throw my arm over his chest and just see if his heart is still beating. That's a whole episode, by the way, or series of episodes. You can catch that. I'll put it in the show notes. But I'm just reminded how precious life is. And when I scuba dive, I am reminded to be thankful for the life that I have, for the air that I have, for the breath that I have, for these moments that I am able to live for. And it reminds me to embrace every moment in life, to be in the moment, and to do more things like scuba diving that make me feel alive. I've had a lot of opportunities lately to catch up with people from what I'll call, quote, my old life, my corporate life, my city life. And a lot of times and this is normal, we get into a rhythm, we get into the motions, we go through the normal day to day. What's new? Well, same shit, different day. And it's like, life is precious every day. Make it your best, because you don't know if it will be your last. You might not be scuba diving, but I don't know, maybe you'll get randomly sick the way Meatball did out of nowhere. We had no idea what was wrong with him. And then he got better one day because doctor number 17 figured out it was a random blood disease. And all he needed was some penicillin for 10 days in the hospital. And so life is precious. Love it. Love every minute of it. Number 4 is I learned from scuba diving that the ocean is beautiful. The ocean is life. Water is life. And I also equally learned that the ocean is a bitch. Like, seriously, a bitch. Like, bitchy AF. The ocean is so powerful. It can hit such extremes. It can be so serene and glassy and beautiful, with so many gentle things in the waters. And in that same day, it can extremely change to be unforgiving, to be powerful, to have these waves that rip, the currents that sweep you out to sea, that you can be literally, whether hopefully with a reef hook, but sometimes just with your finger, like holding on to a rock for dear life, because the current is just ready to pull you miles out to sea if you catch it in the wrong way. That it can have changing temperatures, that you jump in at 80 degrees, 84 degrees, and then all of a sudden there's this random cold front once you hit 55 feet, that all of a sudden it changes to being 60 degrees underwater. And your 2mm wetsuit is not going to deal with that. And all of a sudden your breath catches in your throat, and you can't breathe because it's so cold, and you don't know what to do. And there's also current down there, and you need to slow down and relax. And the more you fight, the more you'll blow through your tank, and the less safe of a situation you can be in. The ocean is beautiful, but the ocean can be a bitch. Number 3 is a really important one, and is something that has taught me so much about life. And a lot of people always say to me, I can't believe you scuba dive. I can't believe you're not afraid of that eel that you're inches away from. I can't believe you're not afraid of the sharks. You're not afraid of the manta rays. You're not afraid of fill in the blank of all the things I've seen down there in the Maldives, on Bonaire, in Thailand, scuba diving in Vietnam, scuba diving in fill in the blank, all the places I've been in the world. And number 3 is the things that are down there in the ocean give no F's about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They really don't. And neither do other people in life. And this is something I'm reminded of all the time when I'm in the ocean, because one of the things that I talk about on this podcast in episode 2 is about how the closer that you get to your fear, the more you can learn about your fear. And the less scary it becomes, that a lot of the fears that we have in life are ones that we've made up here in our head, that what we become afraid of is what we have fabricated and created in our minds, that when we walk into a bar or a lounge or some nightclub and we think everyone's looking at us, or just even in the everyday, like we're just, doing the groceries, like, oh, everybody's looking at me right now and judging me. No one cares about you. Like, really, no one cares about you. This is why so many people are afraid to solo travel. What will people think? What will people think when I'm sitting at that Michelin star restaurant by myself, dining alone for, how long was that dinner? 4 hours? For 4 hours. No one's thinking anything. Actually, you know what they're thinking? That their own dishes are amazing. And that probably they hope you're enjoying your food too, maybe. In the ocean, things don't care about you unless you are actively taking your hand and sticking it into that moray eel's mouth, or you're punching the lobster in the face. Like, things down there really just don't care about you. They are minding their own business. And in the same way that people, everyday people, have RBF, have resting bitch face naturally. I actively try not to have resting bitch face, but sometimes I have RBF. And there's a lot of things in the water. That eel looks mean AF. It always looks like that. It might be having a great day. It might be, recently fed, super happy. But it still looks mean AF. And so does that shark. I mean, sharks are scary AF. They look scary AF. They have these sharp teeth. But that's just how they look all the time. They're just not going to look sweet. Even though Left Shark is one of my favorites and Baby Shark is also one of my favorite songs. Not actually. Anyway. Things down there, they just don't give an F about you. A lot of people think that everything is out there to attack you in the ocean. People think in everyday life, people are out there to judge you. Are you sure? Because if you go into scuba diving with that mentality, it's scary. And if you go into living life with that mentality, it's really hard to meet the amazing people and connect with the amazing people in this world. If you take a different mindset, you might have a totally different experience, both in the ocean and in life. I have gotten so close to so many things in the ocean. And a perfect example, I was so scared of manta rays. They are going to sting you. Did you know that they can't sting you? Stingrays sting you. Manta rays, do you know how a manta ray protects itself? It swims away. I'm not joking. That's its defense mechanism. It swims away. That sharp tail it has, that's a perfect example of RBF, right? Like, those things don't look like super sweet, friendly, smiling at you dolphins and animals. Those stings, they don't have a bulb on their tails. And so a manta ray can't actually sting you the way a stingray can. Speaking of which, everyone thinks like, oh, dolphins are so sweet. Like, no. Dolphins will kill a seal and then play with it just for fun. And I just learned something on this trip called the mermaid kiss of death, or the mermaid dance of death, which is, there's this thing that dolphins will do with scuba divers where they'll go onto their back and they'll play with you, almost like, you're holding its hands and you're on top of the dolphin and it's like swimming with you. But what you don't realize is that when the dolphin does this is it's sinking lower and lower. And unless your dive computer has an alarm to alert you that you are at a certain depth, a lot of people will catch themselves at very deep levels. I'm talking 150, 160 feet below water, and it will just keep taking you down. Anyway, the point of this is dolphins look sweet, but they can be scary AF. And in general, the things down there in the ocean and the people all around you, they don't really give an F about you. That's been a really big one for me with scuba diving. That reminds me of life a lot. No, there's one more part of that, which is an episode with Jodie of Learners and Makers. The way she talks about getting closer to those scary things underwater that genuinely don't give a F about you, or just the scary things in life. The way she talks about it is you have to play with the edges. You have to get just a little bit closer to those things and see it as what I love about her mentality is it's a playful thing. It's playful to kind of see what your fear is and just play on the edge of that. You don't have to cross all the way over. It's just a little bit at a time. I think about how with Meatball, with my boyfriend, I take him snorkeling. Is he ever going to dive? Maybe. I'm not trying to rush him into it by any means. We have our own separate hobbies. Diving is mine, and he's happy to explore snorkeling with me. He sucked the first times, and so I brought him to places where he could play on the edge. It was always in a place where, if you needed to, you could stand up on the sand and not on a rocky reef, for example. Or it's somewhere, easy to get out of the water, for example, in and out of the water. So playing with your edges. Number 2 is shore diving is just hard and humbling AF. I did my first 100 dives off of a boat. I'm used to, well, actually, that's not true. I did like 2 of them shore diving, but the vast majority of them were off of a boat, where you jump off the boat, you go dive, and then you get back on the boat. In shore diving, sometimes, very rarely, you will get in the water and you're right there. Most of the time, you are literally beached whale trying to roll into the water because there's tons of rocks and slippery things and fire coral and big coral pieces and just things that all want to make you fall over, because you're not just walking into the water with your bathing suit on. You're walking in with all of your scuba gear, holding all of your underwater cameras, while having this very heavy scuba diving tank on your back. And it's very easy when a wave hits you to just boop, fall over, and then just very embarrassingly roll in the waves for a while until hopefully one of your dive buddies comes and gets you, or you roll over and attempt to get up. It's just really humbling to shore dive. And even after you accomplish all of that, you oftentimes have a long swim out, sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes a 10-minute swim to get out there, where you just lay there and kick your legs forever and ever and ever while staring into the bright sun. And what this reminds me of in life is, sometimes you can be graceful in life and go through life gracefully, and sometimes go do the badass thing. You just gotta look dumb AF, or it's hard AF to get to that badass moment. I even think about wetsuits. Putting on a wetsuit sucks. Putting on a wetsuit sucks. The number of times I've gotten stuck in a wetsuit, it is a lot. And the other thing that just wetsuits, for example, or even getting into these shore dives, is you oftentimes need a buddy to zip up your wetsuit or to check your gear, to make sure you do the scuba diving buddy check and all the things are right and tight and correct, and you're not going to go down into the water with your tank off and realize you can't breathe any air because the tank is not open. It reminds me that in life that, being badass leading up to it cannot look so badass, and that you need a buddy, you need a friend to help you sometimes in life. That as much as we want to be self-sufficient, especially as adults, we don't want to rely on other people. Sometimes we got to reach out a hand and ask people to help you up because you are rolling around like a beached whale in the waves. The number one thing that scuba diving has taught me about life is patience with yourself. And one of the things I thought of recently was, if you're not familiar with scuba diving, if you haven't gone recently, if you haven't gone in the last 6 months, it's required that you do a refresher. A refresher is, they take you somewhere easy. They make sure you can still do all of the safety things. You remember how to set up your gear. You remember how to work on your buoyancy. In other words, floating in the water at the right weight. You just remember how to scuba dive. And in part, that's because, scuba diving is an extreme sport. It's dangerous, and that you need to be well versed in what you're doing before you can go scuba diving on your own with your buddy or your tour or whatever it is you're doing, the group that you're with. But the other thing is that you need to do a refresher because we're human and we forget things and we need to learn and remember. And having patience with something that maybe you've done many times over life, but usually when people scuba dive, they'll scuba dive throughout their entire life. And it's this whole process of relearning and having the patience to learn something over again. Because as adults, we just expect ourselves to just know. And as kids, we were always down to fall and get back up again. When I was a kid rollerblading, I used to wear the knee pads and the helmet and the wrist guards and like all the things. And I used to fall all the time. I recently started rollerblading again a couple years ago. I'm not a child, by the way. I'm very old. Actually, I'm not. Old ain't nothing but a number. Age ain't nothing but a number. I started rollerblading again. And I kept catching myself being like, wow, I need way more patience with myself. Or I'd have that moment of like, I'm going to fall on my rollerblades. Or even like, I remember I used to have to call Meatball when I was almost back to his house and be like, hey, can you pull me up the driveway? Because like going up the driveway, because it wasn't smooth. It's like almost like cobblestones and it's a little bit of a hill. Anyway, he used to have to pull me up the driveway, bend your knees and put your arms out like Frankenstein, and he would pull me up. Yeah, that's embarrassing AF, but I was giving myself patience. A lot of times I ran out of that patience, but I was patient and catching myself in moments where I needed to be more patient with myself. With scuba diving, buoyancy is not easy. Like imagine you want to hover just 1 foot above the reef. What you want to look at, 1 foot. I mean, measure that with your hand right now. That's not very far from the reef. If your buoyancy is not right, you could crash into the reef. And if that's fire coral, for example, that's going to hurt a lot. If you don't know what fire coral is, don't touch it. It's going to burn really badly for a long time, and it's not comfortable. But the other thing is you could, crash into something like very sharp, or you could hurt the reef, or you could crash into the moray eel, or just fill in the blank with whatever it is, right? Buoyancy is something that even if you get it right, every time you take a breath in, your lungs are now full of air, and now you are going to lift away from the reef because you now have balloon in your body, and now you're going to lift away from the reef. And as you exhale, now you don't have that balloon. Now you're going to get really close to that moray eel or whatever it is. And having the ability to be patient with yourself as you find that medium, in the same way that when you learn to drive stick shift, you might be amazing at it, and then you get a rental car when you're in Chile and you're about to pull into really tough traffic during rush hour. You haven't driven stick shift in 10 years, and all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, this clutch is finicky. Ooh, this clutch is hard. Oh wow, like where is that point which you need to release the gas or push the gas and release the clutch, right? It's all about patience. And I just think about how finding that sweet spot, both in rollerblading and scuba diving, driving stick shift, we all just need to have, especially as adults, way more patience with ourselves. I feel this way every day, learn it every day, over and over and over again as I work on my pickleball game. That sweet spot of how the ball, depending on the angle, depending on how hard it's hit, the way it hits your paddle, how to return it and place the ball in the correct place. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes 10,000 hits with your paddle to understand the perfect medium of how to. We all just need way more patience with ourselves. These are the 7 things that scuba diving has taught me about life. I'm Christine Lozada. If something that you heard today speaks to you, oh my God, tell me. I am at Christine Lozada everywhere, and please leave a positive review. It really does help to distribute this podcast to more people. Go forth, be badass, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.